Okay, I have 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Hudson.
Present.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Present.
Mr. Wilson.
Here. Thank you. At this time, thank you all for coming to attend our board meeting. At this time, I'd like to introduce the 7 of us that are up here. I am Charlie Wilson. I have the honor of being board president this year. To my far left, to your far right, is board member Kelly Davis. Next to her is board member Jennifer Best. Next to me here is our treasurer, TJ Cusick. And I'm Charlie Wilson, board president. Next to me is our superintendent, Dr. Trent Bowers. Next to Dr. Bowers is our board vice president, Nikki
Hudson.
Nikki Hudson. You won't believe, I started to say Nikki Haley, got myself, anyway, Nikki Hudson. And then to the your far left is board member Amy Lloyd. At this time, I would like for all of you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the agenda pursuant to board policy and state law was made public on Thursday. I'm not aware of any changes or modifications. Any? Okay, if not, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll? Oh, first of all, we need a motion. There's not to call roll on. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as distributed virtually on Thursday?
So, second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Mr. Cusick, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we're going to have visitor comments. And again, this is a time for the public to speak directly to the board and to our administration. And we certainly encourage and appreciate community comments and community input. Again, each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes, and consistent with our board policy with respect to public complaints, we do ask that all complaints about a particular employee be referred to the superintendent and not addressed during the public session. Also, we do want to remind our speakers that our district greatly values and respects all people as they are, and that our district is committed to creating and maintaining safe spaces for all our students and all community members. Again, as I said, we value your input, but it is important that you remember our district's values and refrain from using harmful or offensive language, and we ask that you share your comments in a civil and respectful manner. Again, like I think virtually every school board in the country, it is not our practice to respond to remarks during the visitor comment section of our meeting. Our first speaker is Heidi Okay, at this time, we will have our reports and announcements. Dr. Bowers, do you have a superintendent's report for today?
I do. Thank you. So our mission in Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. We've had a good summer in that respect. Just a reminder that our new school year does begin August 16th, and we're eagerly awaiting students back in our schools. So we work to accomplish our mission through 4 vision statements. The first is we will engage each student with diverse opportunities to maximize every student's potential. Guys, in public education, there is nothing more important than the teacher in the classroom. And with that in mind, next week we'll welcome 70 plus new teachers to our Worthington Schools team. We believe that our HR department has recruited a talented, dedicated, and diverse group of difference makers that will help each child in Worthington learn and grow. And so we're really excited that group starts with us next Monday, the 31st, for their first day of 2 teacher orientation. The second item is we'll provide a safe environment where every student can grow intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically. There has been a lot of news press on this, but on Friday, July 7th, while running on the Worthington-Kilbourne High School track as part of a morning summer workout, we did have a student athlete go into cardiac arrest. It was unforeseen and unexplained. But our coach reacted and immediately began to give the athlete CPR while sending senior players to call 911 and get the AED. He continued to provide CPR until the AED could be administered and emergency services arrived. So this really was a textbook response, and one that doctors involved said saved the student's life. In February, all schools were asked by Mr. Banks to practice hands-only CPR and review the AED usage. We're incredibly thankful that for this preparation. Additionally, each of our school sites has an AED that is maintained by the school health professional. Middle schools have 2 AEDs. High schools currently have 3 AEDs, and we're working to add a permanent AED in each stadium. We've agreed also, just to let you know, to partner with what's called Project Adam at Project Adam, Ohio, at Nationwide Children's Hospital, with the goal of having an AED always within 3 minutes on our campuses. So they're going to come in and do an audit of our schools and work with us to figure out radius from our current AED. But that goal is to have an AED within 3 minutes of every space on our campuses. So we're actively working with that. Mr. Banks is working with Nationwide Children's on that partnership. The third items will provide consistent communication and promote dialogue with our community. As a school district, we have, I got ahead of myself here, but we have attempted to let both staff, students, and families rest and recharge over the summer months. But families should expect communication both from their child's school and from the school district in the next week or so, with reminders about the 23-24 school year that begins on August 16th. So those are you're going to start to see those. And then finally, we'll be responsible and transparent with our community resources. Our busing first-time riders event is back. It'll be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, August 5th at the Worthington Education Center. The program is designed to get children ready to ride the bus for the school year. So primarily those students who haven't been on a bus, although everybody's welcome, who wants to come check out a bus and go through that process, but primarily those new students to Worthington or those kindergarten students. So activities include bus tours, rides given by Worthington drivers. Children are able to see under the hood of a bus, turn the steering wheel, learn how to safely board and exit the bus. Staff members from our preschool and each of our elementary schools will be available to meet during certain times. So we encourage families to come at their assigned time, but if they can't come at their assigned time, we just encourage them just to come. So assigned times 9 a.m. to 10, Wilson Hill, Bluffsview, Granby, and Sutter Park. 10 to 11, Slate Hill, Worthington Estates, Brookside, and also Sutter Park. 11 to noon, Worthington Park, Liberty, Colonial Hills. So one of those should be Slate Hill, by the way. That's a 10 to 11 with Slate Hill. Noon to 1 p.m., Evening Street, Worthington Hills. All of that information is available on the front page of our district website. So if someone's thinking about first-time riders, check out the district website. We'd love to see families a week from Saturday. Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cusick, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It seems like it's been a while, but this is our first public official meeting since the state budget passed and was adopted. So I thought just quickly it would be worth noting that that budget included the continued 6-year phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan with updated cost inputs. We'll work through that this fall as we update our 5-year forecast, but we expect to be in a better financial position because of that continued phasing of the formula. Another main provision was voucher expansion. They eliminated the public school performance criteria that used to exist under Ed Choice and are awarding universal vouchers to anyone with income limits at or below 450% of the poverty level, and then it's prorated based on a sliding scale of income above that. We discussed this just earlier at the Finance Committee meeting we had, but the federal government uses 130% as its income limit for free lunch, so 450% is significantly above that in terms of income levels. I'm not aware of any financial audit requirements that were a part of this, which is a thing we tried to push for, but I heard several legislators are willing to hear our concerns on that, and so we'll see where that goes. Speaking of those state budget simulations, there was a very good article I thought today in today's dispatch. It was in the electronic edition, not the print edition, but it was regarding how property taxes in Ohio work, specifically in regards to the looming reappraisal that will be occurring. Letters will be going out soon from the county auditor. And Auditor Stinziano expects Franklin County to see an average of 41% increase, but the point of the article, which I thought they did a tremendous job explaining, was that that doesn't mean a 41% increase in property taxes. Of course, there are nuances with how each individual property compares to the average. So, if you can read that article, I think it's a good read, and we'll even perhaps provide a link to it on our website, because I know when those letters go out in August, we'll be getting questions as to what that means. And then lastly, we recently decided to bid out our workers' comp stop loss insurance and got very favorable rates with a decrease in premium of about $15,000. $15,000 in our budget isn't a huge amount of money, but it equated to 28% reduction in cost. I tell you all that because I realized during the process several carriers actually declined to bid on our job because it's too small for them, even though we think of ourselves as a large school district. But they got the wheels turning. I know one of our board goals is exploring cooperative purchasing with other districts. And so we will continue to leverage those for next year, including perhaps our life insurance, to try to squeak out as much savings as we can and hold down costs. That's it.
Thank you very much, and keep holding down costs. Are there any board committee reports or announcements? Nikki? Kelly?
Okay, well, Jennifer and I just had our finance committee meeting with TJ and Trent. So it was a good initial start to the conversation about sports fees and instructional fees. TJ is going to gather a little bit more information and send us some information on Friday in his update, and then we could discuss more further at our next August meeting, August 14th. So it was a good discussion. Nothing concrete came out of that. As far as our handbook, I did reach out to Cheryl Ryan, who said that they being OSBA, couldn't format the handbook how we were discussing at our last work session. And so I reached out to Trent, who said that the district could put together or format the handbook for us, which would be great. And so Charlie, I know you're finalizing your updates. And so once that's done, if you would get that to Trent so that he can pass that on, so we can hopefully get that in production. It would be nice before the school year, but I don't know, logistically how that would work. So that will be helpful. So that's the update on the handbook. Do you have a question?
I was just going to say, I think we should aim at least before the election, right? If we want this to be helpful to any newly elected board members, does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
It'd be nice.
I completely agree with you. If we can do it before the school year, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Then lastly, I was invited to participate in Worthington's Vision Committee. They have if you've heard of Worthington's vision that they implement, or not implemented, but created a couple of years ago. So now they're going through that implementation process, and each vision has a team that's working on that particular vision. And so I was invited to participate in the leadership vision implementation, which is Worthington's leadership is open, forward-thinking, and collaborative. So we had a meeting recently, and we have another meeting coming up on Wednesday to talk about the things that Worthington as a school is, what they're, not as a school, as a city, what they're doing now, what actions they want to take going forward, what priorities they want to have within this leadership vision. So excited to participate in that and hopefully give some good feedback as a non-Worthington resident, but still very much within leadership within Worthington. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Jennifer? Okay, and I don't have anything. Anybody else? All right. At this time, we need to approve the minutes for our last two board meetings, our July 10th morning meeting and our June, what was the date? 26th, I think it was.
Yes.
Okay, June 26th, what I had written down, but yeah. June 26th board meeting. May I have a motion to, we can approve those both in one motion. May I have a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes for the July 10th and June 26th board meetings. Any comments, discussion, questions? If not,
My only comment was, I did miss the July 10th, so I would just abstain from both.
okay.
Can I point out that the minutes accurately reflect that July 10th was a whopping 2 minutes that you missed?
I think Trent had texted me like at, 7:35 that
We were very
missed a
efficient.
really long meeting.
Yes.
And I was in the lake at Salt Fork Lake at 7:30 a.m. on July the 10th with my three granddaughters. So I too missed the meeting and will be abstaining as well for that purpose. All right. Any other comments? If not, Mr. Cusick, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Abstain?
Mrs. Best.
Abstain.
Motion passes. All right. At this time, we're ready for the consent agenda. Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. That's items E2 through E8 on your agenda. Items E2 through E8, please.
So moved.
Second?
We've had a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any comments? Actually, okay. If not, Mr. Cusick, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
We have unanimously approved the consent agenda. Okay, now, new business recommended by the superintendent, Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item F1. That's the acceptance of the donations listed on the agenda. Item F1, please.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the donations listed on the agenda. Any discussion? If not, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item F2. Item F2 is the impracticality of busing students at the following schools: Tree of Life, Bridgeway Academy, St. Joseph Montessori, St. Andrew, St. Charles, St. Francis de Sales, St. Timothy, Calumet Christian School, Metro School, Immaculate Conception, Our Lady of Peace, Columbus School for Girls, and Bishop Watterson.
May I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation with respect to impractical busing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the impractical busing resolution. Any comments, discussion? Mr. Cusick, would you call the roll?
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we're now to Section G of our agenda. Actions recommended by the Board of Education. The first item is the motion to approve our continuing membership in the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we continue our membership in the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding. Any discussion? If not, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes. Okay, next item is approval of the registration of my attending the Ohio School Board Association, OASBO, called the BAD workshop, the budget analysis discussion on August 1. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
It's not really a bad seminar. It's actually very good.
It is very good. I've gone many years, correct. The acronym is bad. Thank you very much, Mr. Cusick. And also just for those who may be tuning in for the first time, it has always been our tradition and practice, and I think it's a very good tradition and practice, that the people affected by this motion are certainly free to vote on the motion one way or the other, so I will be voting. Any other discussion? Mr. Cusick?
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, moving now to our calendar. First item that should stick out is that we agreed at the last work session that we would meet on Monday, August the 7th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a work session. And so that will be here at 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. Then the following Monday, we've got August 14th, our regular board meeting here at 6:30. Then on August 28th, our second board meeting, a second regular board meeting of the month on August 28th at 6:30 here. Any questions, comments about our calendar? If not, may I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we enter into executive session. That is not a debatable motion. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, we'll be going to executive session. We will then leave executive session to adjourn the meeting, but there will be no votes, no discussion, no public business whatsoever afterwards. I guess you're free to hang around to watch us adjourn, but otherwise you will not be missing anything. So thank you all very much for attending tonight, and we stand adjourned. Or we stand, no, I'm sorry.